everybody, this is Alchemist 2 and I'm back again with another series review. Recently I just watched the episode of Sinbad called Hunted, and Dad and I agreed that this was the absolute best episode of the entire season so far. The reason being is during the very beginning of it, Nala and Rena are trying to distract the guards that are after Sinbad because Akbari's Necromanceress, she has looked into the great beyond to see where he is, and she traces the provenance to where they are right now in that particular episode. And Anwar gets a little bit of affection from the ladies. Of course, it was all an act, but it was a very diverting act, and it was a great distraction. So they kept the guards off of their tails for that time, and this episode was very intriguing because it was more about Gunnar than anything else, and we learn a lot about Gunnar's past. I'm not going to say what exactly happens here, but my theory actually comes to light in this particular episode, and if you want to know what that is, then you can just email me about it and I'll tell you, because I really don't want to give a spoiler away here if you've been watching the series up until now. I really enjoyed the relationship or the friendship between Gunnar and Sinbad. I thought it was really wonderful, and then the relationship or the especially with Anwar. Anwar realizes he's made a huge mistake, but he does this so he can save everybody's necks, and little realizing that he has unleashed something that is very dismal and dark and ominous with the Necromanceress's spell that she creates with a little lock of Sinbad's hair that Rena was keeping in her little chest, and she conjures up this familiar from that, and things get a little bit more interesting, and she can, the Necromanceress can control the familiar so long as she remains in a trance. But of course they don't realize that until later, and Nala finds that out the hard way. But it's this episode was really quite remarkable and very exciting. A lot of stunts were done in it, particularly that with this group of ninjas that was involved. They were a very elite class of warriors, and they give Gunnar the chance to join them because they realize he has a lot of stamina and skill, and he could be an integral part to their team. So Gunnar has to weigh his options quite a bit, and it's just a very good episode, solid episode, and just full of action and adventure. And it reveals more about the friendship of the crew. And I had no idea from the very beginning that it was Sinbad's grandmother who put the curse on him. I always thought, oh, she's just a caretaker, but she's a grandmother. I thought, that makes it even more intriguing than I thought before, because I always thought that she was just some caretaker who was looking over Sinbad and Jamil, and it wasn't. It was his grandmother. So she did this for a reason. And this episode was all about controlling one's temper and anger, and it was very, very marvelously done. Coming from somebody who, it's me, who has some issues with her own temper, I thought it was a very inspiring episode, because if you just don't allow your anger to take control of you and act impulsively and lash out and realize that your anger really controls you, and we learn that the familiar is feeding off of that anger. So in order to destroy it, he has to completely let go and allow himself to become peaceful, calm, serene. And then he says, "I come in peace," and then the familiar just disappears. And actually, that was my favorite scene of the entire episode. And I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it was just so cool the way that it was done. And the familiar just looked awesome. I mean, it was just so incredible. I love the way the familiar looked. He was just he was fierce. He was intimidating. He was frightening. It just daggone algebraic in his the way he was laid out and rendered and everything. He just looked absolutely remarkable. So I just love the familiar. It's a pity that he had to go that way, but at least Gunnar revealed that to Sinbad, and had Gunnar not been there, Sinbad probably would have been killed by his familiar, and then that would have been the end of the series, and that would really stink. But this is the pinnacle of all the episodes so far, at least in my opinion. But of course, other watchers of the show may have other ideas of what the best episode is. I still really like The Old Man in the Sea, just because of the whole Hades Persephone parallel, and just the idea of Nala and her background, and it tells her story. And it and this episode is more about Gunnar, but Nala and Rena don't quite really get along that well, because Nala comes off as kind of a spoiled rich girl, which she is. She's a princess, and her father and she were very important people, and they had a lot of clout, blah blah blah. And I still like her quite a bit as a person, even though she comes off as sort of um overly important, or kind of a character who is affluent, but she really doesn't lord it over people. How she speaks of her father is rather interesting, I feel, because she refers to him as if he were still alive at times, but she knows that he's dead, and she acknowledges this. Um, I would really like for there to be an episode on Anwar, because I like Anwar quite a bit, and he wants to prove himself as a macho character like Sinbad, and Sinbad is just such the hero of the hour. He's the anti-hero. You know, he's not your typical um, good guy, especially not for his character, because his character has a lot of flaws. But that's I think what makes him so relatable, and he's just such a likable character, and I just love him to death. He's probably my favorite. But I like Anwar too, because Anwar is the polar opposite. He's more of a character who is very analytically driven, and but he's very resourceful, and he knows how to use his hands well, especially in combat situations. And we learned that in this episode. I thought, oh well, Anwar can fight, but it was just a lot of fun and very entertaining, and I absolutely adored it. And I think that all of you who have been watching Sinbad up to this point wonder what's in store for he and his friends, particularly with the Necromanceress's vision. You think, very interesting indeed. But we shall see next Saturday, shall we not? Until I see you again, I shall bid you all adieu, and take care of yourselves. Blessings be, and live long and prosper, my friends.